right, welcome to this week's FHIR Analytics meeting. I didn't set up a formal agenda for this week, but so kind of open to the floor. Obviously, we're continuing to work on the API draft. I talked to Brian. He is working on that. He's working through a revision of your content, Nikolai, and trying to figure out sort of where to place that. But he didn't get a chance to get to another revision in time. But I'll
Yeah, I only
keep on
have
him.
one note about this. So, okay, so we could not do it conformant way for R4, that way like we proposed with the ViewDefinition additional resource. But we still can do this for R5 and R6. And my question, do we want to do multi-version IE when we can just say that for R5, R6, you can use the ViewDefinition resource and type level and instance level operations, but for R5, you can use system level, or we want to just make it R4 based. And so that's probably the question to Brian and to the rest of the team that we should like discuss and decide.
Were you not on the call last week? Because we talked about this.
Or maybe not. I think I was.
Hold on. Sorry. Let me double check if I'm out of date here. No.
Now we discussed that for R4. Yes, we can do system level operations for that.
Right. Yep.
But we didn't discuss it. Should we throw away R5, R6? So that's a new input. So the idea, maybe we can preserve them, but say explicitly it should be R5, R6.
What would that mean in a practical sense?
That means that this IG is applicable to different versions. And for the newest version, it looks just nicer than for the old version.
Okay. Right. So would it just be like a documentation tag? The IG itself could say, version.
Yeah, that's the question, because now I see a lot of IG groups are discussing multi-version, because everybody want to keep like one version of the spec. They don't want to create separate version for R4, R5, R6, or even for different version of US core. But they doing some like conditional stuff as setting as dependency multiple versions, and the Graham is working on that. So I don't know, maybe when we will have more people, we can discuss it again.
Okay. Yeah. I just don't understand what the practical effect would be. It's really where I'm at.
Practically, I think that it will be written for R4, it should be like this. For R5 and R6, it could be like this.
Okay. So some conditional,
Maybe
not
it
conditional, but
doesn't work.
documentation.
I don't know. So the question. So I'm still not sure. Maybe we can just live with R4 version forever. Maybe not.
Okay. I mean, I think that's not a separate issue, but so I think the intention is that we do want the operation to be at a resource type level and maybe at the instance level in R5 and R6 compatible systems.
Yeah.
How we document that, I think, is just the question here. I mean, what is your thought on, you're suggesting we do a multi-version.
I still don't have a strong opinion. So it will be a little bit more freaky if we do it on R4 way. But if ViewDefinition gonna be like official additional resource on R6, so then I don't know. It is still possible to use the API we define it right now. So, and that's the question. Should we wait for R6 and until Graham will fix IG Publisher to be able to do what we need, and now just roll back to R4 compatible version, or we can try to keep both of them? I don't know.
Yeah, is there any demand for a R6 compatible version today? Is what I'm suggesting.
I think the whole FHIR guys want to push a little bit people into R6 direction. Otherwise, that's my feeling. R6, nobody will move to R6 for many years. So the like extra motivation, nice IPs, and again, so the Graham said that the ViewDefinition is going to be official additional resource in R6. This is kind of motivation for us. So do we want to use it or not? But R6 is not yet published, so that's maybe too early to discuss. I'm not sure. Maybe we don't have Gina, so we do this in R5. I think R5 introduced additional resources, but maybe something still missed in R5.
If I'm remembering, which I'm probably not remembering accurately, but I think R6 was the target more ideally. I think R5 did not take enough steps to R6. It was sort of a halfway, but it wasn't very good one. Yeah, let's maybe just table this discussion. I think it's too
Yeah, okay,
open-ended at this
that's not
point.
just for two of us. Yes, so let's
Yeah.
wait for other guys.
Yeah. I think we don't have a blocker for an R4
Yeah.
non-compliant, right? Not actually non-compliant. It is compliant with R4, right? Specification. So let's continue development of the API. Maybe we can put some more focus time on it so that we can move things forward. Anything else on top of people's minds? We did a little housekeeping last week. I didn't really progress too much of
I
my
think
stuff.
we can give a scene to Jin because Jin want to do this demo.
Yeah,
And
I'm checking to see if there's
then
anything else.
yeah, and then we can discuss when we have enough time after. So I have discussion for materialization of the
Okay.
view. We can do it after because it's a longer topic.
All right. Gene, floor is yours.
Okay, cool. Thanks, guys. And I'll be quick. It's just kind of a mock-up of a idea that potentially could extend the usefulness of all this work in addition to all the work that's already been done. So can you guys see my screen? Yes. Okay. So basically the point is that semantically or the logic in SQL should be able to be translated to logic in SQL. And in addition to that, you should be able to do generate the artifacts, which are measure reports from both SQL and SQL on FHIR. So the point is that ultimately it's just code that picks some random FHIR resource, does a bunch of evaluations, and creates an output. We're not doing nuclear, engineering here. We're not doing like very complex AI coding. It is usually very simple query logic that is just saying, does the value in this particular FHIR resource meet the requirement that I have? Right? That's the whole point of a quality measure is you're just evaluating the data. So how the code is written is taken into account on what format the data takes place. So basically, in SQL, it's just looking at SQL, numerator, denominator, FHIR resource A, B, C. So here is like a theoretical SQL code that I can, validate. It's valid. I can drop in a FHIR bundle, or I can execute this with a sample. So when I do the sample run, you can kind of see both evaluation methods have completed, check the output. So what I'm left with is this. So I can see the FHIR measure report that's been generated and the FHIR measure report from SQL. So here's the main population, here's the denominator and numerator. Okay, and I can work with that. Then I can do the same thing on FHIR. So basically, SQL on FHIR generated an SQL query. That is the translation of this SQL. And here's my SQL generated measure report. So similar to how the SQL generated a measure report, you have an SQL generated query and it generated the measure report as well. So kind of see the, log here, how much one is taking, how much the other is taking, things like that. And that's really the gist of it. It is, something that ultimately I think would be a nice spec to have. So this is just like a demonstrator mock-up, right? But like, if this is a tool that was out there, this would like take FHIR, I think, and extend it out to many, many different use cases and give people the flexibility of using whatever they want to use, right? So this doesn't convert from SQL to SQL, but in theory, you should also be able to do that if you wanted to. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, that sounds very interesting. But your conversion, you do it manually or like with LLM? How you
LLM, yeah. I
so
think that ultimately you would program ELM, so ELM to SQL on FHIR translation, so that you could eventually translate everything piece by piece. But right now, it's kind of like a high level LLM, translator that understands SQL, what it's trying to do in the FHIR resource, and then recreates that in SQL.
Gene, what's your gut tell you in terms of any corners of SQL that might not be functional this way? Or have you found any yet?
Yeah, I mean, I think that as you rise in the level of complexity of the SQL, so SQL, you can have a one-liner query that's very simple, like identify a diabetic, whatever. That's very simple, and then you could have a super complicated, like a medication adherence HEDIS measure that is like 1,000 lines of code and has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of, little, logical statements in there. So that it's probably going to be much more difficult. But again, if you build a system that is capable of doing this, like just taking SQL as it's a collection of operations, right? It's a collection of lookups, all of that stuff, and then extending it to do the same thing essentially with SQL on FHIR. I think that basically you're extending that functionality and usability on both ends of it. So and then you're capturing basically the requirements. And if you already invested time to build the SQL, it's very easy to translate that to be runnable on SQL on FHIR. In theory, I mean, again, there's probably a lot of assumptions I'm making that are not necessarily like, yeah, this is not as easy as it seems. But I think, that's something that if people want to work on to put it as a goal to see something that can be done, I mean, I would love to work on that.
Around like schema stability, basically, right? Like if you were to take a SQL, let's call it a measure, some measure, right? It's defined using some particular set of symbols for patient and birth date and whatnot, right? If you were to try to construct SQL code, queries, CTEs, right? Like there's no kind of guarantee that birth date in SQL, right, is going to be DOB in some system, right? Like there's a translation step there, right? So, yeah, have you given any thought to that? Obviously, there could be potential solutions there, but like, let's say you wanted to use this in the real world, right? And you got, you have your EDW or whatever. Yeah, have you ever given a thought to that problem? Because if you're just translating FHIR resource definitions to SQL definitions, that could be pretty straightforward. But if you're trying to apply them in a real world setting, then you're going to, kind of meet this schema problem.
Yeah, well, I agree with you. I mean, it's something that would have to work with predefined list of resources, I think. So it's almost like I don't have this in this prototype, but I'm thinking the way you would have to make this work is you basically go in and you select, here's the FHIR resources that the SQL is utilizing. Here's the view definitions, the SQL view definitions that you have that are, aligned with those FHIR resources so that you would have the schema conformity between the two, essentially. So I think that that's a very good point. And yeah, that you would have to have some way to, I'm in this prototype, I'm already assuming that you have that you basically, any SQL code that you want to convert to SQL on FHIR already has the view definitions for all the same resources. And essentially you have all those elements present, right? So, but that's a very good point. That would be like almost a predicate before you could do this step. You would have to make sure that you that's covered.
Okay. Yeah.
I see 2 points here. So the first, it's a translation of SQL to SQL and view definitions. But another point that just give another tool to express the similar logic, but using view definition in SQL. So it doesn't mean that like the SQL programs are not the source of truth. Yeah, sometimes the source of truth is some kind of rule or I don't know, report people want to get, and it can be crafted manually. And we discussed with some NCQA guys, yes, that some reports are still very problematic to run performant way on a population level for the SQL. Yes, or you can like pay millions to AWS. That's okay. So, and the question may be, it's still worse to like manually or half LLM way to write this stuff. And I like the idea that we can feed this measure report and like create the infrastructure so people can not just doing this with a SQL, but do it with a ViewDefinition and SQL. And they will have two tools and they will pick which one is better for their use cases. So doesn't require translation, yeah, so people can do it manually.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's a lot of. I think there's a lot of interesting ideas in this space, and I think there's definitely some activity. I'm not super closely involved anymore, but I think people are interested in these kinds of ideas because we've seen, like, I might be shooting myself in the foot here. Obviously, there are parts of SQL that are pretty subtle, like the time, the date and time conversions and types. I think in SQL are the ones that people probably have the most difficulty with. Is what I've heard. Got on a lot of direct experience with that, but I've heard that they were the most difficult to implement. For instance, in various implementations, given the way SQL models and handles time uncertainty. But yeah, I think I mean, maybe there's a potential. Hard to say right now, I think, but people are definitely thinking about this. People I think are looking to SQL as a, logic standard, right? That was one part of it. So it doesn't, like, being the language that you define the logic does not necessarily mean it is the language used to execute that logic on your platform, right? Like those can be disambiguated. So I think some people are looking towards options for that. And in fact, that's how the systems, some of them work today.
And it's still more
Yeah.
visual thinking, yeah, because not so much SQL in production now. There are some, but it's not like standard de
Right.
facto. Yeah, it maybe looks
I get
like
it.
not the euro, but not the standard de facto. Yeah, so
It's de jure, right? It's definitely de jure, right? So
yeah.
the promise is the next 5 years it will become more and more de jure over time. And so everything I've seen and probably you guys have seen is people are sticking with that story.
Yeah, I'm not sure in AI era, so maybe it will be blown away in a year. So that's my feeling.
I mean, the
It-
next thing I want to try is I want to actually have a CQL builder that does the logic. So the CQL builder with AI, so that's not a human building a CQL, but it's still very early to be able to do that. We don't have enough. There's not enough training data basically to do that. But in theory, what you're saying, Arjun, is like I think that's exactly like you codify the requirements, whether it's CMS or HEDIS or some startups create their own measures or whoever or organizations, and then you codify them in SQL because SQL is very FHIR centric. Like it's easy to define exactly what data you want to use, how it interacts with FHIR, where is it coming from, et cetera, et cetera. But then to your point, it might not be the how you execute that. And this is where this converter tool basically takes you, well, you're actually executing the SQL on FHIR version of the logic that you define. And then there's like an ELM translation layer behind the scenes that is feeding that so that it's, accurate and all of that. So there's probably a question of like, functions and which functions exist in SQL versus not SQL and how SQL functions work. But that can all be figured out. I feel like that's like, but again, like, I think that's the question is that useful? And then is that something that, we should work on?
I mean, I think more options are better. We need folks from DQuick on this call, right? Who are in the thick of this, and organizations that are very are committed to the accuracy and certification, right? Like those are important. And to your point, like you need training data and examples. Like it is very difficult to even find the minimal amounts of SQL and the evaluation of those, data sets, test decks. Like it's extremely difficult to find these things, and I think that's like one of the reasons people don't have or CQL struggles with a lot of confidence in itself. It's like where's the there's some reference implementations and things like that, but like from my perspective, I want data, right? If I was an organization, like I want measures, I want test decks, I want all those things. If I was a vendor or an end user or whoever or a developer, I don't know how much you've found of those in an open form now, Gene, but or did you use any? Did you find any sources of like CQL and TestX for evaluation, things like that out there?
I mean,
Is
there's
there pretty
this stuff out there, but like,
yeah, right?
but the point is like, yeah, you should be able to use that as the logic or whatever. It seems like Insecure and others are proceeding forward with that as the standard, and that's how they're certifying. Like Smile is certifying right now.
Mm,
Other vendors are certifying. So CQL is there, but it's not necessarily like performant, you know. So
mm,
this would give you like, okay, well, you're building the SQL code from the CQL and then executing that. That is way more performant than anything that you have to do because SQL has been figured out for many years. It doesn't need as much of a infrastructure to be built out, right? So I don't know. That's like probably outside of the scope of this group, but
Yeah, there's another interesting point because if SQL is official logic, you may test your SQL implementation using the same data set, and if it's like different corner cases, and if it's provide the same result, so then you can run your SQL program instead of SQL. So and this is nice. It can be written completely different way, but if it's produce the same result for like different data sets with the corner cases, then you can trust it. And you can use a SQL like just a reference implementation to test your real world implementation again.
yeah, because
yeah,
to be clear, there's no other specs out there that are to the level of detail that you would need to build a SQL. Like for years, people, what they do is they take those heated specs that are essentially a book that's a narrative, and they make a lot of decisions how to translate this requirement to this code. And that's what NCQA wants to get away from. So CQL gives you that exact literal, here's how this needs to work based on which file resources there, and then you can still create the SQL from that, which is a lot better than creating it from the regular specs, right?
Yep.
Or some other requirements, whatever. So
yeah. I mean, it's still empirically validated either way, right? Like you both, it's validated in the same manner, and there's like parts of the system that matter a lot too to performance, as you well know, Gene. So like data mapping, data quality, aggregation, right? Things like that. Like those are like, super critical that are outside the scope of the logic itself. Like if you look at it really narrowly. So we're in a kind of strange, like, it's a little bit strange because you have this SQL based ecosystem today, right? Move to the CQL based ecosystem, and then you might actually move back to the SQL based ecosystem for performance. I haven't heard much recently about performance, but like it's
but that's the whole point. Like you don't need to move away from the current system. You just incorporate this new way of building that. Like, and I think that may be a more palatable argument to a lot of, health systems, the vendors, the large have invested hundreds of millions, billions of dollars into all this infrastructure. And there's no way they're getting away from that, right? So it's
mm,
just this creates a bridge to use that, I think.
yeah,
I mean,
I'm with you.
oh,
No, I think I think it's that that makes sense. It's ironic, right? A little bit, but it's like, yeah, I'd love to have more from the people, kind of the powers that be in the industry, like be supportive of people trying to come up with solutions in this industry, right? In this part of the ecosystem, particularly, how important it is moving forward. So yeah. Well, anyway, I appreciate the work and the demo. I think it's interesting. I mean, I don't think CQL to SQL and vice versa translation is going anywhere, right? Like, I think even outside of the regulated spaces, which have a kind of life of their own, like people are going to want to do it, right? Kind of the more accessible all this stuff is, the better. Like, how can it? I mean, even if you're a total, 100% CQL believer, like you can't say maturity wise we're at like what 10% maybe, something like that, right? So maybe more, I don't know, 50%, but that's still, there's still a long way to go in maturity. So
I wouldn't, Arjun, this one comment For Gene, I
Yep.
wouldn't be surprised if some really large organizations that are thinking about adopting CQL are rolling their own because they're and so what Gene is proposing here could be incredibly valuable because for sure they have a SQL database that they're working with on the back end. So rather than adopting a newer, SQL CQL engine, they may be just writing their own interpreter and marrying that up to their own backend database.
Yeah, I think it's known that there's some organizations that are doing that for sure, like some larger ones, or have considered it. Yeah, it's. I think the more options, better in this space. I think it's just the maturity level is quite low, right? And so, like the more variation, the more people involved, the more organizations involved, the better. All right. Nikolai, did you want to talk about? Did you have a topic?
Yeah, so guys from my team, so we do have a materialization of the view definition as a table. The
Mhm.
question, should we work on standard API for this materialization? Any other guys? Steve, are you interested in this? So that the idea that it's not expert, but it's more high level operation. You say here is a view definition and just keep this view up to date. Just do initial export or filling this view and then try to keep it up to date. So that's for the end user may look nicer than just doing export and then like re-exporting, loading. Yeah. So my question, should we work on standardizing this stuff or not? So the one version was using expert, like continuous, consider it as a continuous expert. Yeah, we discussed, but looks like it's a different type of API because we don't have an output files. We don't need formats. So looks like it's a separate operation. We understand it's going to be a synchronous operation, but like continuous asynchronous. So you should be able to see what the status of the view, or maybe like manually refresh it. So the one of analogy could be like materialized view and refresh operation in databases. So that's my question. I can prepare the draft for that if you're interested. So I just switched from Claude Code to Gemini. Yes, and
Do you like
Gemini guy, he is very consistent, so he is not agree with me. So I'm pushing, like if I push Claude Code, it's usually say after some time he said, okay, let's do it like that way. You convinced me. But the Gemini was quite consistent. I tried to build like discussing API on top of view definitions, like not introducing new entities, but the Gemini insisting to introduce something like materialized view or something like this and separating concerns of definition and the operational resource. And to be honest, I convinced. But the question I can make couple of drafts and I don't know. So because one of version will bring the new resource, which will be like materialized view or real view. And then you configure this. And this resource allows you to create, drop, change, and refresh. But it's not the view definition because view is a definitional resource, yes, and this resource is an operational resource. So we can try to simulate it using like just procedures like materialize, drop, and something like this, and passing some ID, but it's still going to be like, it behaves like resource, this materialization. Maybe it deserves to be the resource, but I don't know, maybe it's too much for now, but yeah, okay, I will make draft and let's see. Because for the end user, this is even like more preferable than just bulk export. Yes, so here is my columnar database. Here is my source. Just keep it up to date somehow. Yeah, I don't care how you're doing this.
Yeah, I'd be interested in definitely looking at it. When you're getting into views and materialized views, and you're getting very close to specific database implementations, right? Are you thinking Postgres or do you think this can be,
So
ANSI compatible views? I think there's always been really interesting wrinkles with views in SQL.
So for now, we have two destinations in our implementation. It could be right in the same Postgres, or it could be click. But
Okay.
essentially, for the end user, it looks for me like the same operation. So I'm saying here is a view definition. here's a destination, is it Postgres or ClickHouse or maybe Redshift or something else, and just keep it up to date.
So you're saying the API you're thinking of would not have, it's more around the mechanics of handling those views versus, a direct mapping from a view definition to a specific view.
Yeah. I'm not talking about like views, because even in Postgres we sometimes using an unlogged table or something like this, not view exactly. I mean like this idea of the view, like which is can be represented just as a table in the.
Yeah, I would be very interested in that because we are playing with similar concepts, and you also in your description there talked a little bit about like continuous exports, which we've played with, which there are all sorts of in some of the databases that we use, like we use Cassandra for some of our work, and there are pretty low level adapters that pump any the change data adapters, right? Any change whatsoever to some of the so a table results in a push to like a Kafka topic for further processing. So you're thinking that would also so we'd have to sort of characterize that at a spec level, how at least the interface for it, so people know what we're trying to set up. Yeah, that would be interesting too.
Because I remember the John presentation, because they finally end up in the Postgres table, yeah. So they do this transformation, but at the end it's a table which you can query, and yeah. Okay, so I will work on a couple of drafts and then we can discuss. So
Okay, sounds good. I think it does support a use case that's not listed, right? It's beyond what we have done so far. So yeah, I'd be interested to see it.
Anybody who's going to be touching these sorts of things is going to need to sort of wrangle with what these topics that Nikolai's bringing up. So the more that we can put out there in the form of a spec, so that's easy to say, okay, yeah, here's how we do this. I think more of these kinds of things, the better.
Yeah, and it might be, we might decide that it's guidance rather than, or optional rather than something, a requirement. I mean, I think we're pretty weak on, like low on the conformance requirements to begin with, but that's okay. I mean, that's good. I think it's good to stay flexible, but yeah, I think it's just filling in a hole in the use cases, right? Beyond synchronous running and then asynchronous export to somewhere. That's of the data, right? Not of, not constructing the table itself. So I think we're missing something. Okay, cool. Anything else in terms of topics people want to discuss for right now? I know I'm a little behind the times, but hopefully I'll find some time this week to move some of these forward. Connected on session. Good point. So
sneak up on us pretty quick. So we just need to figure out what we want to do. I think we have a room on Sunday.
We do. Yes. Get your Connected on tickets. Yeah, Sunday afternoon, Adam. I'm forgetting what time we got. It's like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock.
I wish I had the spreadsheet. I had it open earlier, and I think something like 2 or 3.
All right, I'll definitely advertise that around to the channel. Plus, like we normally do, we'll just be open to connecting with folks about the topic just broadly. So yeah, if there's interest, we can have like one session on Sunday that's kind of like a checkpoint, but definitely open for broader conversations, earlier and later.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to figure out like what we want to cover. Like, do we want to just do like we did last time and like more of an introduction to SQL and FHIR? I don't know if we can do as much justice as Nikolai's presentation. That was actually probably one of my favorites. So, but yeah,
Send me your slides, Nikolai.
Yeah, I can say this. I did it as a workshop, so maybe if Steve will be there or other guys, they can show. So, and the others. So I will miss this connected on, but the other summaries will be there. So if you need, so they can participate in this session as well.
Okay. Well, great.
I guess it's more reason to come to FHIR Camp than see Nikolai in person. So
yeah, the FHIR Camp is going to be fully self-organized, so no tracks at all. So just pure open space.
Awesome.
The unconference. I don't know. I have to get my bosses to approve.
Yeah, push your boss, and bring your boss as well. So we need both of you. Maybe
that's
even more.
True. You should reach out to my boss and say we would love to have you, and then bring Arjun. So that's the best way.
Yeah, I'm pressing him. So like once a couple of weeks. Yeah.
Good. Good.
Maybe you could press me to Arjun to have. I told Pavel I'm not coming probably because I only have one client right now and they're not paying for me for a trip to Portugal. So let's just say that. But I'm happy to tag along if your boss wants to do that.
We'll see. Okay. All right. Yes, I would. I think it would be terrific to make that happen. So let's keep working on that. But yeah, we'll get organized around the Connectathon. Nikolai, if you want to send your notes to me. Yeah, we could do a kind of an intro session. I mean, we just need to advertise more.
I still think that like intro is important. So just to
Yeah.
show where we are. What
Yeah.
we
I
have.
mean, given that there's only 6 of us here, I think we still have some evangelism to do of SQL on FHIR. So
Yeah, I mean, it kind of we had a peak, and then we've been just busy with other things. But Nikolai, speaking of, what about you're talking about online, like a conference, like another like analytics conference?
Yeah, that's
later?
what we should schedule. So work with our marketing team. I know it's probably November, maybe December. So let's decide. So when we can do this. So we need enough
Yeah.
time to market it, but I don't know, maybe in winter. So let's pick the date and move to it. So
Yeah.
Connectathon is September. So the FHIR camp is the end of October. Maybe end of November is good, but we need like a couple of months to market before.
I think end of November, early December is good. There's quite a bit of stuff that I saw in September that I didn't think about. There's like Health Data Palooza, there's Weedy, so there's a lot of stuff that will be September, October, so probably November would be good.
Yeah, let's consider November, but we should decide ahead and start marketing this stuff. So everything is ready. We just have to pick the date. Maybe let's vote for the date and yeah, it's online, so we don't need a lot of preparation, just the speakers.
What about
that'd be-
online? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm done.
I think, yeah, maybe like, I don't know, like sometime, maybe like even like the first week of December could work.
I would rather probably do December just because of Thanksgiving.
Yeah, maybe that sounds good. Like,
Yeah, first week of December. Let's make a poll, and let's reach out to. I haven't checked in on much with Josh or Dan recently. Maybe Dan might have been doing some work, and we wanted to do analytics, right? So like AI, LLMs too, right?
yeah,
Not
we
just
can add
SQL
like
Fire.
a topic about AI stuff. Maybe Jin will present something, and I'm pretty sure that the Bashir has a topic like SQL LLM generation and all this stuff. So yeah, it's not going to be the central topic, but yeah, the analytics plus AI. Now, like plus AI, we can add AI to anything.
Just shove AI in there, like we work at big tech company.
Oh, I mean,
Okay.
we should reach out to like Google, Databricks, Amazon. Like that's what I was kind of joking earlier. It's like these are all companies that should be pretty engaged in the analytics space.
And we have
Yeah.
some Bashir can represent the Google. Maybe I don't know. Maybe Brian can bring somebody else. I don't know. Are they working on other projects than OpenStack?
I mean, I have somebody at Databricks like I've talked to, but they're willing to provide resources. They don't have anybody that is going to be like working on this. Like, if you want to partner to build something in Databricks, they will provide you like resources and stuff like that. And they're very, very supportive. Like, honestly, I just haven't had the time, but they were very like, if you guys want to build anything, we'll promote it. We'll help you get resources, get credits, whatever else. So, but it's
Yeah,
also
the
question
guys from Databricks on our meetings. I
Mhm.
don't know where they are, but I can ping them. Maybe they still doing something like this.
Yeah, I've heard from other conversations that from Databricks customers, right, are interested in this. That's always the best way to influence. So, yeah, let's restart the Databricks connection for sure.
Yeah, Aaron was here, so I can ping him and ask, well, they doing something or?
Yeah.
Yeah, Aaron Zavorik is the guy. I actually
I know
invited him
Aaron's
to the I invited him to the PGH dinner. He said he's going to try to make it, so maybe.
Yeah. We'll corner him in Pittsburgh. That'll be a good topic, like a task for us. Let's start. Let's use the Connectathon as kind of not a marketing, but like a intelligence gathering, right? And start rebuilding those lists. Nikolai, Adam, of those interested parties, get folks interested, get folks, kind of more engaged. So, and see what they're doing. So, okay, I think we have some to-dos.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And let's pick date as soon as possible so we can start marketing and do all this stuff and inviting the head is the speakers. Yes. So let's first discuss with the speakers when they are ready and then move forward with it.
Okay. Do you want, is Daniil gonna spearhead that?
Yeah, you can contact Daniil and Svetlana anytime. So they can.
Yeah, how about like me, Adam, Daniil, Svetlana, we just coordinate on like chat and Zulip and just say like, okay, let's start kicking this off. Does that sound good, Adam?
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. And if you want, we can just come up with a short outline for the HL7 talk. And then I think to Nicola's point, we should get a date probably maybe by next meeting for the analytics conference.
Yeah, we'll need to poll
first
polls.
Yeah,
we'll need to poll speakers. That's the only thing. So, okay, I'm engaged. I'm back. So let's. I'm gonna start. Adam and I will drive it with Daniil and Svetlana. All right. Cool.
Can you add me to the? I kind of want to take another crack at your take another look at your presentation too, Nikolai. So if you could add me to it also.
Yeah, I will try. I don't. Yeah. What presentation? So you mean this workshop I did, or?
Well, no, just your presentation at the last SQL and FHIR meeting.
I will try to remember. So in Madrid, yeah, you mean? Or...
Yeah. It was my favorite presentation of the week. So, now I just want to.
I forgot which presentation. I will share all my presentations. So.
I want to add it to my list of favorite FHIR talks. And actually, if I teach another intro to like Smart on FHIR, I think I'll like add a little module on it based off that talk. So.
Yeah, I will share all my presentations. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Cool. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
All right. See you next week.
Cheers.
Bye.